Isn't it amazing how fountain pens can spur different interests, different rabbit holes? I don't know if this is something which you have experienced as a viewer, but for myself, looking into fountain pens, I then promptly discovered Urushi after purchasing a Nakaya Piccolo in Midori Tamanuri. That sort of was the initial ripple in the pond, so to speak, and that ripple just got bigger and bigger to a point where I started venturing out of fountain pens and looking at such wonderful objects like this plate from Wajimeya Zeni. And it's even now got to a point where it's influenced my ink collection. So the ink which we're going to be looking at today is this ink before you, which is the Tag Tamanuri in Aka. Now, just to give you a little bit of a background about this ink, after I'd got into this rabbit hole of collecting Urushi plates and pens and so on and so forth, it got me thinking, wouldn't it be fantastic if there was an ink which was sort of influenced by the Urushi craft of Tamanuri? So I contacted Diamine, I contacted a few other companies, and there are one or two companies where you can get bespoke inks made. I think the name escapes me, but if I remember it, I'll put it down in the link in the description below. But yeah, it got me thinking, wouldn't it be great to have this ink rendered? So I contacted Diamine, like I said, and they said, yeah, absolutely, we can do that. But it was going to be £800. So I thought, oof, that's a lot of ink. I think it was going to be like at least a litre of ink, which that's a lot of bottles. So that promptly scuppered those plans. But last year, I believe Tag had posted on their social media account that they were doing a Tamanuri line of inks, which basically piqued my interest. My rabbit ears poked up and I thought, oh yes, yeah, that would be absolutely fantastic. The only problem was it was only available in the Japanese domestic market, and unfortunately I don't live in Japan. So yeah, again, that sort of went by the wayside, and until about 2 weeks ago when a friend of mine, Sophia, aka urushi.notes on Instagram, please do go and check her out. She does beautiful Raden work, and she's now starting to venture into doing makie as well. She'd been doing this course in Japan, and she'd gone into, I think it was Itoya, and there it was. There was the ink, and she contacted me because she knows I have a deep vested interest in Urushi, and she said, would you like to have a bottle? I thought, absolutely. So she told me how much it cost, I made the payments, and when she came back she promptly posted it. So what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be having a look at perhaps the ink which is the pinnacle of my collection of inks, and we'll see how it performs. We'll see, is this a good ink, is it a bad ink, is it boring? Don't know, but it's Tamanuri, so we're going to give it a try. So I'm not a scientific person, but what we're going to do is we're going to ink this beautiful ink up in my Eboya Hakobune, and we're going to see how well it performs. It's not going to be a scientific test. I'll try it on a few papers. I don't have an extensive paper list, but we'll see how it performs and see what I like about it. Does it shade? Does it have any particularly unique properties? I'm not holding out any hopes, but hopefully I'll be pleasantly surprised. Anyway, let's have a closer look. So, what do I think of the ink? I love it, but what I love about this ink is its sort of deeper connection to Japan. Of course, you know, the ink itself, it performs wonderfully, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in depth in a moment. But there's one or two things which I feel the ink sort of maybe missed out a trick on. It would be nice to have an information leaflet in there, even if it's just in Japanese, about Tamanuri and its sort of cultural significance within Japan. That would have been fantastic, and certainly, you know, if it comes to this country, having an English translation would have been absolutely wonderful too. But in general, what this ink does, it helps raise awareness about lacquerware in and around Japan, where unfortunately during the 1940s and the 1950s, plastics started becoming more prevalent, and unfortunately the consequence of that was that many of the artisans were put out of work. And whilst there are still many in Japan, the interest from younger people is just not there, which is a great shame. So what this ink does, it helps raise awareness. And you'd be surprised actually how many people in Japan haven't even heard of urushi. You know, that's how bad it's got. You know, it's gone from something which was an everyday use item to something which I guess has been sort of forgotten by many. Not by all, just by many. Now, what do I think about this ink in itself? I love it. It's got this beautiful sort of shading properties. The burgundy darker tone certainly matches that of my plate. And in general, it's a fantastic ink. I'd say maybe some of the lighter shades could have been perhaps a touch more red, but I can appreciate the fact that from doing the mixing, it would have been maybe a tad harder to do. Now, would I recommend buying the ink? Well, if you're shipping something from Japan, you buy a pen or something like that, and you want a nice red ink, yeah, I think it's really good. If it came to this country, I think it would probably retail around about the £20 figure. And at that sort of price point, unless you're sort of a die-hard fan of urushi like I am, I think it's quite a hard sell at £20. I mean, it's a nice ink, but there are far better options out there. There's inks from Robert Oster and Diamine, which I think certainly offer a great alternative. Blood Moon was a special edition ink, or I think, yeah, special edition ink from Robert Oster for the Phantom Pens Are Incredible group by Bernardo. That was a lovely one. And then you've got Writer's Blood, which is a really nice option. Ox Blood from Diamine, both great options, and they're certainly almost half the price. Now, of course, you know, in Japan this is around about £11 or £12. So yeah, if you're buying it from Japan, and as I say, if you want to buy several inks, it makes this ink quite well worth it, and certainly one I would certainly consider recommending if that is something which you're interested in doing. But yeah, I won't sound like a broken record, and I'll leave it there. The only thing I will ask you to do is, if you've enjoyed the video, do consider liking, subscribing, leave a comment. What do you think of this ink? Are there other red inks which you would recommend? If so, again, leave them down there. And the only thing left for me to say is stay safe and goodbye for now.